So today we're honored to have both Nolan and Brent on the same stage, two generations of a gaming family, to talk about really kind of the anchor point of our industry for so long, location-based entertainment, which is really, for so long it had been the entry point for almost every good title you knew was coming to console. You'd see it in the arcades first. And now sometimes it seems like some of the other platforms steal most of the attention and the thunder. But we all still go out and eat. We all still go out and like to get out of the house, and it's such a great place. I think it's interesting to see where did this all start from, and of course, we'll start with you, Nolan, and talk about how this all came to be. Why did you put a Pong out in a bar?
Okay. I started out as a carny. I had an advertising company in college selling ads, and I knew that summers in Utah that I was going to spend too much money, so I decided to get a fun job at the local amusement park. They paid shit, but I said, it's going to keep me out of harm's way. Well, it turns out that you got commission. I was pretty good at it, and pretty soon they made me manager of the department. And all of a sudden, I was managing 150 kids, doing all the midway games, and I had 2 arcades. And so there I had to know the economics of the coin-operated game business without really realizing what I was learning. Think of it as an accidental MBA in location-based.
And at the time, those arcades were like pinball,
and then they had these mechanical nightmares that were essentially moving slideshows. And they had discs, and there was a driving game called Chicago Coin Speedway that was impossible to keep running, and various things. And then the cranes, they had these really janky cranes, and a lot of peep shows, that were a penny, and you'd put in a penny, and you'd look in, and like the advertisement would say, a selection of shapely pinups. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do it. And there's 4 clothespins, just joke stuff. And which incidentally, those kinds of games started at the turn of the century. And then the game business really went gambling during Prohibition. And so the Prohibition era was, and I feel like I should talk about that, just a little bit of history, because during Prohibition, the speakeasies had illegal alcohol and gambling and loan sharking and prostitution. They were under the radar, they were paying off the cops, and so it was full. So when Prohibition was repealed, they still had illegal gambling and what have you. And then the slot machines that they had started to disguise themselves. And they disguised themselves as pinballs. And the reason it could work is that you could get a payout from these machines that say for amusement only. But if you were regular and the bartender knew you, he'd pay you off over the bar so he couldn't get caught. It was really hard to get caught. And so that worked, and it's happening right now at speakeasies in Tennessee and Kentucky and some of these places that are dry in the cities and wet outside.
And pachinko parlors in Japan, right?
Exactly. And so that's kind of the background. And that's why, a couple of my distributors, one was called Bullets, and these are guys that were in the coin-op business, but their parents were totally made guys. And so when I started Atari, everybody was saying, well, aren't you afraid of the mafia? And I said, well, if they make me an offer I can't refuse, I won't refuse it. But it turned out that the business had really pretty much cleaned itself up.
Are you saying that Chuck E. Cheese wasn't run by the mafia?
No.
Okay.
But we learned a lot, and the reason that I think this happened to me is that I played a game called Space War that was written by a guy named Steve Russell at MIT at the university. And I thought to myself, if I could put this screen with a coin slot, it'd make money. But then you divide 25 cents for 3 minutes into a $500,000 computer and the math didn't work. But I filed it away, and then one day after I graduated at Ampex, the cost of TTL chips went from $2.50 to 15 cents. And I said to myself, I can design one. I can design a video game, you know, and it turns out that I could.
So Brent, you've grown up your whole life kind of around games and location-based entertainment. Do you remember going to a Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh my God, all of them. Yeah. Actually, not. But I remember, you know, the openings and, you know, being a kid wandering around and all that kind of stuff. But the really cool stuff was going to the amusement park convention, which still exists, by the way, in Orlando once a year. IAPA is all of the different kinds of, you know, new games, new attractions, new amusement stuff. You know, it's a total blast.
And the AMOA.
And the AMOA. Both of those, you know, are you know, excellent conferences, and he was taking us there as 5-year-olds.
And I think actually I think that might be where I met Nolan when I was working at Microsoft for DirectX, and we were thinking about what we could do with the public entertainment space.
Well, and it's interesting because, you know, bricks and mortar, location-based has always been kind of a bad word. You know, I mean, Silicon Valley famously didn't want to invest in you know, in bricks and mortar stuff. And, you know, but it really, you said it, we still want to go out in public. We're still, you know, yeah, Amazon just delivered all your stuff, new shoes, new pants, new jacket. You got to go use that somewhere, you know? And,
Well,
you know,
and even Amazon's got a brick and mortar store now, right?
Right.
So there's still something there that's really inherently social about games. We want to go out. Games are, for me, I always say, games are an excuse to be social. And so, you know, location-based entertainment. I even met my wife at a location-based entertainment company. Wow. So. The other side up in Seattle playing PC games in a public space. So there's still something inherently drawing us out of our homes, even though we can connect via the internet.
Yep.
You know, and you've started all of this with full well knowing that we've got internet, we can stay at home and play games. Yeah. What made you decide to take after your father and really go into this space?
You know, interestingly, for the first part of my life, didn't want to do games and entertainment at all, and worked in a bunch of different domains, from web hosting and web design, was in auto salvage, by the way, which is as boring as it sounds. You know, met my co-founder. We started collaborating, making interactive art, and in 2008, we were really frustrated, even then, that everybody was on Facebook and on their phone and not hanging out as much together live. And so we felt like there was a real opportunity to get people back together again, using this kind of new tech as a way to get, you know, get people playing together. And, you know, so in a bar, rather than awkwardly, hey, can I buy you a drink? It was, you know, I'm gonna freaking kill you next time, or you're gonna do great, you know, through that room of laser beams. And you know, for me, I feel like that, you know, we swung so far into digital, you know, but literally on average, we're home alone, depressed. But the idea of like getting back in public again, we felt like there was an opportunity to capitalize on that. And so we, at first it was just for fun, and then brands started calling, and we were taking this stuff to parties and events, and ultimately did our own traveling carnival, which was quite a challenge to set up. Literally 3 times the size of this building. If you can imagine setting that up for a weekend, I don't recommend it. And then we finally said, well, Macy's and Sears going away. You know, you read in the media that retail is collapsing, right? And it's not collapsing, right? Retail is changing, and Macy's and Sears might be going away. But the future of the retail complexes are things that require your body, right? You can't, you know, phone in drinking the martini. Yeah, you can buy a bottle of vodka and drink it, but you still have to go to a bar to drink the martini, right? And I'm a terrible hamburger maker, but I will go out all the time for a great hamburger. So food and beverage is an obvious one. Health, wellness, and beauty, right? So a Soul Cycle, you know, a juice bar, all that kind of stuff. Work and learning, so WeWork, General Assembly. I actually think there's a gap in the sort of live learning space. But you know, the future mall is going to be all those things, right? A WeWork, a Soul Cycle, and hopefully a Two Bit Circus, and you know, you end up with this collection of things that you have to physically go to. And you know, there's an incredible book called Bowling Alone, and this Harvard sociologist analyzed all the different ways in which humans have gotten together in public. And basically, after the 60s, attendance just craters in every category, right? Bowling leagues, church going, union attendance, all these different ways in which we used to get together. And perfectly tracking with that is depression, the other direction, right? So as we don't get together in public, we're depressed. Perfectly tracking with that also, a decline in civic engagement. The less you hang out in public with people, the less you care about your metropolitan, the less you care about your city. And that one, literally, my hair stood on end as you look at the graph and they just match perfectly. We don't have the city centers we used to. We don't have the ways in which you can talk to all your friends, virtually, but there's something about the time between bowling sets or before the pastor starts speaking or whatever that face to face, you and I talk about something meaningful, or maybe, but at least it's, anybody who's worked with a remote worker knows that it's not high resolution to do it over Slack, right? We all could have phoned in this conference. We came here live, right? Live's the best, the highest resolution, and so anyway, I'll get off the soapbox.
I think you're obviously passionate about this, right?
Well, you go into Europe and you see people in the park playing boule or pétanque or something like that.
Or bocce.
They're all over 70, and yet there's a bar in Georgetown that has 36 bocce courts and they're packed. And every mall has a vice president of entertainment. And after they get a multi-cinema, they're kind of scratching their head saying, what are we going to do? And yet they've got massive amounts of real estate available. Right now, there are 200 malls that can be purchased for land value plus tear-down cost. And so what happens is they lose a Sears anchor and the mall dies from that side. And a Bed Bath & Beyond isn't that anchor. And so, but entertainment has shown to be an anchor if it's at the right scale.
So Dave & Buster's is still going strong.
Oh my God, 100 locations. They see 20 million visits a year, somewhere around in there. That's a solid distribution platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just had a new one open up in our area in Auburn near Seattle. So what do you think has stayed the same? What's the common roots of thinking about entertainment in a public space that's true no matter whether it's the internet era or whether it's Chuck E. Cheese? What's the common truth?
Well, the common thing is that it's really hard to get funded. I mean, okay, imagine you're a VC, and I come to you and I say, I'm going to build a pizza parlor that is 10 times bigger than any pizza parlor you're ever going to see. The pizza is going to be kind of bad. and I'm going to attach a great big arcade, but wait, there's more. Talking robotic animals.
Where do I sign up for that? Right, here's the check.
I'm in. Yeah.
And so it was one of those things that I actually started it inside Atari to vertically integrate towards market with our coin-op, because we were selling games for about $1,500 a piece at the time, and coin drop throughout their life was $30,000 to $40,000. And so you'd say, I'm on the wrong side of this equation. and so that was where it is. But then when I sold to Warner, they didn't want to be in the pizza business. So they sold me all the tech and the first location that had a $500,000 EBITDA.
Wow.
And they sold it to me for $500,000, $100,000 a year for 5 years. I was positive cash flow day one. What a deal. And I made more money on Chuck E. Cheese than I did on Atari. Just
That's fascinating.
Well,
you, Brent?
the things that say the same, atoms are so much harder than bits, right? You know, they're so much more expensive, as you said. They're so much more inflexible. You know, there's lots of all that's, you know, building permits and all that kind of stuff. It can maybe it's gotten harder in Los Angeles than it was at any place you guys went. But oh my God, this place could almost not be open now. It took us so long to get all that done. But then I'd say training. You know, you're still at the end of the day, you could design a thing, you know, one way, but the actual implementation of it, getting people on board, getting them trained, getting them ready to go, and then 3 months later, some of your staff has changed. And now you got to retrain them all that stuff, keeping bathrooms clean. Robots.
So you're saying human nature hasn't changed?
Human nature's not changed a lot.
Managing employees, HR, all of hiring, training.
Yeah. And you know,
those are the same.
You know, and awareness is you know, probably gotten better. You know, I mean, it's gotten easier. I think, especially we're in a market. You know, we're in an industry that is maybe less, you know, competitive than, you know, we're competing for entertainment dollars, but you know, there's not a lot of other micro amusement parks, which has been great.
How about for you, Nolan?
China is just going batshit right now because they're having all these people that are quite young. They still have a very young workforce, and they're making enough money that they're solidly middle class now, and so they're looking for entertainment. And if you were to look at where LBE is really rambling, it's all in China.
And it's interesting. They've had a boom and a bust and a boom cycle for VR arcades already. And there's this thing called the six-pocket child, which is they have basically a whole generation of only children. Each of those only children with 2 parents and 4 grandparents, so that's 6 pockets of money, all for this one kid, right? And you know,
and they're not spoiled at all.
but that's
Little
it's interesting. They you know, they're all wanting experiential, like just you know, like you know, kids in the U.S. and they've got, you know, spending power.
Well, and I think an acceptance of that public role for the entertainment. Can you imagine the success of StarCraft in Korea without the PC bongs?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the PC bongs and the Wongbas in China were so instrumental in creating acceptance of video games as a sport or video games as a component of their entire industry, their software industry, with the public entertainment of a PC bong.
Yeah. Right.
So what would you say is different, Nolan? If you were to start Chuck E. Cheese all over again today, what do you think is vastly different for you than what it was back then?
Well, I actually tried to kind of do a Chuck E. reprise with a company called U-Ink. And this is when I realized that sometimes being too ahead of the curve is not a good idea. We had touchscreens at every table. Games
Looked a lot like this room.
very much like. And what we wanted to do is have both food and drink ordering, but also game playing and group gameplay. And what we did was we thought we were going to go after young 20-somethings. And so the economics were we went to relatively high-cost mall space, smaller, you know, a third the size of a Chuck E. Cheese. And what we found is that, and one of the things that people complained about with Chuck E. Cheese is the parents were in the dining room and the kids were away. So it was not families together, families disparate. And that kind of always bothered the parents a little bit. And so I thought, hey, if we can bring the entertainment to the table so the parents and the kids are playing together, that'd be a good thing. What happened was that when you have something for families, you do all your business on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, period. You can give away the house on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and shoot a cannon through the place and not find it. And so, as a result, you have to have weekend capacity and not worry about the rent load on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so, by having too small, too expensive a rent, the economics didn't work the way we wanted it to.
You couldn't take advantage of it on the weekends when everybody wanted to come, and then you were still having to.
Yeah, and so we ended up, and then add to that our tables cost us, at that time, we had Mac Minis, and you had to buy the touchscreen separately, and we you know, the flat panels weren't really there. And we were spending $15,000 a table in tech, plus the tech was a little bit buggy, and the networking was all Cat5, you know. And if we'd have done 2 years later, we could have done the whole thing with a $400 iPad and Wi-Fi. You know, just, we did everything wrong too soon.
We only have a little bit of time, but Brent, if you could just say, you know, as you got to take advantage of all of that lessons learned, where do you see LBE going forward?
Well, you know, for me, the thing that's so exciting is still the amusement industry wants to sell you, you know, the difference between Pac-Man and Donkey Kong is literally the sticker on the box, right? Same computer, same controller, same box, but that whole economic model is still, they want to sell you a new box next year. And so we've really built most of this park as a big platform so that the content can be changed very dynamically. And you know, you make a game for home, it's like 20 hours of play, 100 hours of play. In public, I literally need 5 minutes, right? I need like the trailer for the game. And so we've built this as much as a go-to-market strategy for the game industry, you know, as a new form of entertainment for audiences. And so, you know, versions of mobile games, versions of console games that can have that 5-minute version. You'll see that you know, the card that you got when you arrived. We share that with the game maker. So the games, a lot of the games that we have out here are games that we adapted from Switch, games we adapted from console, and so we're open to doing that with all of you. We're working on more sites right now, and you know, one of these does, you know, hundreds of thousands of people a year. It starts to get real, starts to be real numbers.
Excellent. Well, any final parting words for the audience, Nolan?
Well, if I were going to be in the LBE business going forward, I would design something that would take a complete floor and maybe the complete facility of an abandoned Sears. And I would use a lot of stuff that is relatively low cost, you know, bocce courts, you know, pool golf, things like that, and sort of what we have here on, you know, times X. And I think that there is a place for 150 to 200,000 square foot amusement facilities that maybe even have babies, you know, have a kids area, have a Chuck E. Cheese area, and so that it's a one-stop entertainment stop. And with the right rental construct, I think that you could just coin money.
Any final parting words, Brent?
Just taking notes. Yeah, no. No, that's good. That's it. This has been great. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you to these guys for helping invent
any questions out here?
And yeah, and afterwards, please feel free to come up and ask these guys questions too, right? Cool. All right. Thank you all.
Okay.
All right.
Jason.
That's it. 20 minutes is far too short a time. Thank you.
Speakers are welcome to meet up in the Q&A room for more questions, or probably just right outside at the bar for more questions. Thanks so much, you guys. And that brings us to the end of day one of GamesBeat. Thank you again to our 2019 sponsors. I'm not going to read them all this time, but. And remember that we'll be back in LA next year, so add it to your calendars, April 21st and 22nd for GamesBeat 2020. The next event is Transform, July 10th and 11th in San Francisco, and here's special instructions to save some money on that early.